This video is for those students who are stubbornly stuck a grade or two lower than they would like to be, who get teacher feedback of too general, more detail needed, and refer to the text when analysing quotations, as well as for those students who are already accessing the higher grades, but who could perhaps benefit from varying the style of their written answers a bit more. Once you've come up with the ideas that you want to include in your analysis, the hardest part is often getting these down on paper so that you use terminology correctly and so that your analysis not only makes sense, but is also detailed enough and makes adequate reference to the text. Lots of time can be wasted in just trying to think about how to word your response, time which could be better spent in making more points or including more detail in the points you already have. In this video, I'm going to show you how to work smarter to avoid falling into common traps which prevent you from accessing higher grades. I'm also going to discuss the thought processes I go through when I analyse a piece of text and give you a selection of sentence structures and frameworks that you can learn and show you how to use and adapt them so that you can incorporate them into the rest of your analysis. A trap that students often fall into is analysing the language in a text in very general terms. I call this analysis social butterfly analysis. While a butterfly is an insect which flits from flower to flower, a social butterfly is a person who is very happy to flit from one group of people to another, or from social event to social event, and is just at home in one setting as another. Social butterfly analysis is analysis that is perfectly happy to be cut out of an essay about one text, to be pasted directly into another essay about a completely different text. The reason that this type of analysis is used so often is that it comes to mind very easily under exam pressure. Unfortunately, though, this type of analysis does not get you any credit. Here are a couple of examples so that you can see what I mean. Firstly, we'll look at a couple of lines from William Wordsworth's poem Composed upon Westminster Bridge. This city now doth like a garment wear the beauty of the morning. This very vivid image describes the way in which the sunlight is reflecting off all the buildings in London during the early morning, and is one, therefore, that appeals to our sense of sight. So here's my social butterfly analysis, which is not going to get me any credit, but one which, over my years as a teacher, I've seen many, many times. The writer uses a simile. This city now doth like a garment wear the beauty of the morning, to paint a picture in the reader's mind. Now we're going to look at the first line of Wilfred Owen's poem, Dulce et decorum est. Bent double, like old beggars under sacks. This very vivid image describes the appearance of a group of exhausted First World War soldiers who are returning to their dugout after some particularly fierce fighting, and is another, therefore, that appeals to our sense of sight. So here's my social butterfly analysis, which is not going to get me any credit. The writer uses a simile, like old beggars under sacks, to paint a picture in the reader's mind. In neither case is the analysis wrong as such. Successful writers of descriptive texts are those who are able to paint pictures in their readers' minds. But we do have a problem in terms of the credit that you would get for it, because if we look at the analysis, it is exactly the same for two completely different texts. This is telling us that we've not gone into enough detail about what the picture that is painted in the reader's mind actually is. When we analyse a text, we're dealing with our own interpretation, and this is affected by our individual understanding of the words that are used, their definitions, and any associations or connotations that there may be with or for them. And this is how the writer achieves his or her effects. So let's go back to our first example, William Wordsworth's Composed upon Westminster Bridge. This city now doth like a garment wear the beauty of the morning. First, I'm going to annotate it with definitions, associations, and connotations which come to my mind when I read it. And this is going to form the basis of my analysis. A definition for the word now would be at this particular moment in time. A garment is another word for an item of clothing. And the beauty of the morning is Wordsworth's poetic way of saying sunlight through the use of a metaphor. Now I'm going to look at the other techniques which are used. Like a garment is clearly a simile because we have this marker word like here, and the fact that Wordsworth is suggesting that the city is wearing the sunlight like an item of clothing means that he is personifying it. I could stop there, but if we go a bit deeper, there is some higher grade analysis to be found. If the city is wearing the sunlight, then Wordsworth is suggesting that it is like fabric, and sunlight is yellow or golden in colour. This then logically suggests to me that the fabric is golden in colour as well, which makes me think of cloth of gold, which is a material associated with royalty and the church. This suggests to me that what Wordsworth can see in front of him is truly resplendent. Now let's look at our second example, which we can annotate with the definitions, associations and connotations that come to mind when we read it. Bent double, like old beggars under sacks. As I said before, the soldiers are exhausted, but the image bent double makes me think of people who are in such excruciating pain that it causes their bodies to contort, and this shocks me as a reader. In terms of terminology, we would describe this as a phrasal verb. A phrasal verb is a verb which is made up of two or more words. In the image like old beggars under sacks, which is of course a simile because we have our marker word like, the adjective old immediately stands out to me, as these soldiers were generally very young and relatively strong. It seems as though they are perhaps unnaturally and prematurely aged. Now, beggars under sacks. Beggars are social outcasts who are generally seen as weak and living in extreme poverty. The fact that the soldiers are described as being under sacks makes me think of people who are cowering and hiding. These young, strong soldiers really seem to me to be at their lowest ebb, where things can't get any worse. But how am I going to write all these great ideas down and get credit for all of them? We'll just park the annotations for a moment while we consider the kind of vocabulary we need to use, and then we'll come back to them and write some analysis which will get lots of credit. In all my videos, I talk about the texts as I would write about them. This is deliberate, as it is a style that you should seek to emulate or copy. Because we're interpreting what the writer is saying, we tend to use words which suggest possibilities rather than hard and fast truths, such as suggests, communicates, conveys, which is just another word for communicates, evokes, which means brings to mind. You could use this as well if you wanted to. Alludes to, which means hints at. You could use this as well if you wanted to. Implies, which means strongly suggests, and infers, which means deduces or concludes. Note the difference between implies and infers. Implying is what the writer does. Inferring is what the reader does. These are some of the sentence structures that I use frequently in my own videos and which I have included in the description under the video. The insert terminology, insert quotation, to describe, insert what is being described in your own words, suggests that, evokes, alludes to, communicates, indicates, conveys, etc. Insert analysis. Or, with this, his, her use of insert terminology, insert quotation, to describe, insert what is being described in your own words, the writer, or insert name, appears to be suggesting, etc., that, insert analysis. Or, the writer uses insert terminology, insert quotation to evoke, etc. You could include how or the way, insert analysis. Or the way in which the writer, insert name, uses insert terminology, insert quotation, to describe, insert what is being described in your own words, suggests that, insert analysis. These are only a few examples, and you can adapt them as you see fit, as you get more confident. If we now return to our social butterfly paints a picture in the reader's mind, we can see that this completes your sentence and doesn't need you to add anything more for it to make sense. Unfortunately, this is where a lot of students leave it and move on to another point, missing the opportunity to earn more credit. Another way of saying this is allows the reader to visualise or imagine. The advantage of this is that you can't finish the sentence there. You have to complete it with what it allows you as a reader to visualise or imagine. So we end up with a sentence framework which reads as follows. The insert terminology, insert quotation, allows the reader to visualise, imagine, understand, etc. Insert what is being described in your own words, plus your analysis here. I always try to insert the terminology and the quotation near the beginning of the sentence, as these should never really be the point of it. Your analysis is better at the end. The analysis is the bit that gets you the most marks, and if you put it at the end, you have more of an opportunity to go into greater detail, because you can always continue in another sentence. Now let's go back to our two quotations which were suffering from the social butterfly effect, and look at the way we can incorporate our annotations into one of our frameworks. First, we have Wordsworth's Composed upon Westminster Bridge. So for this one, I'm going to use the last framework I suggested. The simile, now doth like a garment wear the beauty of the morning, allows the reader to visualise the way in which the yellow sunlight, at this particular moment in time, reflects off the buildings, appearing to clothe them in a fabric such as cloth of gold. Now I have more annotations which I haven't used yet, but which I don't want to waste. This is another trap that students often fall into. They annotate the text with all these great ideas, but these don't end up in the actual essay. This is just wasted time and wasted opportunity. If you can't fit them into one sentence, include them in another one to make your analysis even more detailed. Now I'm going to use my second suggestion. With this personification of the city who doth wear these beautiful clothes, Wordsworth appears to be suggesting that the landscape in front of him is as resplendent as a king or queen. Second, we have Owen's Dulce et decorum est. I'm going to show you here how I adapt the basic frameworks to suit the analysis I want to make. I'm going to base my sentence on the first framework. The phrasal verb, bent double, is a shocking image, evoking the way in which the men appear to be contorted with excruciating pain. As you can see, I've had to change it slightly to incorporate this comment here, which refers to the effect that the image has on the reader, which, of course, examiners are always looking for. I haven't used up all my annotations yet, so I'll carry on. The simile, like old beggars under sacks, with its connotations of extreme poverty, implies that what should be strong young fighters have been prematurely aged to become cowering, hiding weak outcasts who are at their lowest ebb. Once again, I've had to tweak the framework slightly, adding this phrase here, so that I can include all of my annotations. If we now compare our new analyses with our old, we can see that they are no longer social butterflies, as there is now no way that they could be swapped with one another as they make detailed reference to the text under discussion. So, just to summarise. Avoid paints a picture in the reader's mind, and other similar phrases, like the plague. If you could use your analysis in an essay about a totally different text, you won't get any credit for it. So don't waste your time. Have some ready-made sentence frameworks which you can adapt and incorporate into the body of your essay. i.e., these are useful for when you are analysing language at a very detailed level. You wouldn't compose your entire essay out of them. Include all your annotations. If they stay in the margins, you don't get any credit for them. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments section below and I'll do my best to answer them. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos on English language topics and exam techniques and English literature texts.